So, man, my day's just officially been ruined. Dan Hooker pulls out of UFC 313, man, with a hand injury. I don't know. He injured his hand during training. Dan Hooker has to pull out of UFC 313, man. The co-main event against Justin Gaethje. My day's just been ruined. My week's been ruined. Ah, man, 313 is now officially cooked. I mean, this card was already mad top heavy. It was really top heavy. We had Alex Pereira, Ankalaev, Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, Rufi versus Green. We got Ignacio Bahamondes versus Turner. You know, that's a top heavy card. It's a very top heavy card. And now we've just had Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker. Their fight's been canceled at 313. So I don't know what the UFC is gonna do. I have no idea what the UFC is gonna do. Dana is now stressing because 313. You know, it's already not the best pay per view, but at least Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje, that's a potential fight of the year. And then Alex Pereira and Ankalaev, those are two huge names that are obviously, of course, a fight that's been anticipated for a while. But now losing Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker, what are we going to do? What's going to be replaced with that? There's a lot of options. I'm going to dig into some of those options right now today, but it is so unfortunate that Dan Hooker has a hand injury. It doesn't seem to be too bad. It doesn't seem to be too bad. I think he had a hand injury. He got the hand injury during training, during sparring. So it's not really bad. I think it might just be a fracture or a sprain or something that just is limiting his ability to train and, go into a fight that is going to end up sending him into the hospital. So he's not trying to go in with an injury. He's going to come out with even more injuries. So it's better that he's fresh. Makes sense. It's smart. But it is unfortunate nonetheless. We will see what the UFC decides to do because there is only 2 weeks until UFC 313. There's a few options. Of course, they could reschedule Justin Gaethje with somebody else. They could reschedule Justin Gaethje with somebody else, or they could move the Hooker Gaethje fight a couple weeks down the line, or maybe a month down the line. Book it at 314 or 315, one or the other, man. But this fight needs to be made. This is one of the best fights of the year, and now it's getting canceled. So I'm really hoping that they do reschedule this fight instead of booking Gaethje versus somebody else. But there is a very high chance that Hooker's out and they replace Hooker with somebody else. There's a high chance that they could put Rufi in a 5 rounder. I've seen people be saying that replace Hooker with Rufi for 5 rounds. That makes zero sense. It makes zero sense rankings wise. Makes zero sense fight wise. It doesn't benefit Justin Gaethje at all, and Rufi's only had a couple fights in the UFC. It doesn't make any sense to book that. If anything, you should put Jalen Turner versus Justin Gaethje, man. At least he's in the rankings. He is coming off of a loss, but just the lightweight fights on 313. There's not really any lightweight contenders there that are very worthy of fighting Justin Gaethje. To be honest, they're not ranked. They're either not ranked or very low ranked. I think Justin Gaethje should fight somebody like Dan Hooker or maybe Matus Gamrot. If Gamrot wants to come in short notice, they could book Gamrot, Justin Gaethje, or what is the potential and the best potential option that there is an option. There is a potential chance that this could happen. There is a chance that this could happen. If Arman Sarukian wants to make up for his pullout at UFC 311, he could come in short notice and fight Justin Gaethje. That would be a good matchup. That would be a good fight, and that would be a good way to redeem his spot in the top five. Redeem his spot in the top five and get that rematch with Islam Makhachev. He would deserve it after coming in on short notice and fighting a tough guy in Justin Gaethje. That would be well deserved. That would be very well deserved. But that's up to Arman Sarukian, of course. We'll see what the UFC does. I'm sure they're going to be calling around, looking for names, looking for people to replace Dan Hooker. Or another option that I think is better. I think it's a better option. I don't know if it's a very high likelihood that this could happen, but they could move Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje to 314, and they could move Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler to 313. That, I think, is the best outcome, the best thing that the UFC could do. Will they do that? I don't know, because Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett have to agree to cut their camps in basically half, cut their training camps in half. They'd only have 2 weeks to train, so I don't know if they'd want to do that. There's a very minimal chance they'd want to do that. But if the UFC pays them a bit more, they could be interested. I think that would be the way to go, because otherwise UFC 313 is looking pretty cooked. With losing this co-main event, UFC 313, if you look at that main card, it's pretty weak. It is very, very weak, actually. So the UFC is going to have to do something. They're going to be struggling right now to look for a matchup to either replace Dan Hooker or move their fight further down the line, which is what I do believe they should do. They need to do that. This is such a good fight. This is a fight of the year contender, right? This is pure violence, and somebody's gonna get sent out on a stretcher. We know this, and the hype for this fight is so high. This is such a high level fight, and we need to see this fight. We just need to see this fight, man. So I'm really hoping that the UFC moves this fight down the line. Either replaces their fight that they were supposed to have at 313 with another lightweight matchup or just a different matchup in the ranking, something that's still exciting. It doesn't have to be a crazy, crazy fight, a crazy co-main, but they could replace it with something, you know, some sort of matchup like Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler, or something in the rankings. If you could put Michael Morales versus Gilbert Burns, you could put anything. Take anything from a different card and put it here, or maybe even you could get rid of that Apex event. You could get rid of that Apex main event of Roman Dolidze versus Marvin Vettori and put that as a co-main. Like there's some things that can be done. I don't think that they are going to do that. I think they will just find a replacement for Dan Hooker. Most likely it'll be somebody like Rufy or Matus Gamrot. It'll be something like that, man. So I do think 313 is officially cooked. I don't think it will be as good as it would have been with Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje, but it is what it is. Hopefully Dan Hooker recovers properly and is able to fight Justin Gaethje at some point in 2025. But that is the entire video, boys. If you guys did enjoy it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop your comments down below what you guys think of Dan Hooker pulling out of 313. It is unlucky, it is unfortunate, but I will catch you boys in the next one. See you.